Welcome everyone back to another episode of Q&A with Sharon's son George. I was my mother's caregiver after she was diagnosed with Parkinson's disease. Sadly, she passed on 1/1/2020, but we started Together for Sharon.com in her memory and to advocate for a cure for all those still battling Parkinson today and their families because no one is ever alone in this fight for a cure. Today's guest is someone who I admire and I'm also really inspired by, also a fellow attorney, which will be an interesting conversation. But it's such an honor to have you here, John, and really excited to learn from you, but also to advocate together.
Well, George, thank you. I just want to thank you so much and appreciate the opportunity to be here and share with you a little bit about my story and why I've become so committed to being involved in the Parkinson's community. My story with Parkinson's actually began first with REM sleep behavior disorder. A prodromal symptom of Parkinson's. That began in when it first occurred. We had no idea what was happening. You had this weird event, and woke up, and my wife is on the floor, and her first reaction is, "Gosh, work must be a lot more stressful than you realize." But that's actually how my journey with Parkinson's began. It began with REM sleep behavior disorder, and that slowly led to my involvement with being a patient advocate, and then eventually with the Parkinson's diagnosis, I continued to become more involved. I just wanted to say, as we start, also, I greatly admire what you're doing in memory of your mother. When you gave me the dates for the show today, today is the anniversary of the day that my dad died, and he did not have Parkinson's, but he never knew anything about this part of my life, so it was meaningful for me to also do the interview today, because this is a part of me, that he never really knew, but I've always been inspired by his example to be involved.
I really appreciate it. Well, we send our love and support to the whole family in memory of your father, too. Whether from Parkinson's or not, we always want to remember those we've lost. And I think they do live, and we keep their memory alive through our advocacy. So thank you for that. You actually brought up something so fascinating, and I hate saying I love the show, but I really love the show because we've never actually, I think now there's almost 209 episodes in only few months. I'm not sure how long I can keep it going because it's not easy, but you all, so many inspire me, also our listeners. But we've never actually said the word sleep. And that is actually one of the most concerning parts of the Parkinson diagnosis. So I'm so honored again, not just for you, but that you're actually bringing light to this important topic. My mother completely struggled with sleep. I myself struggle. I'm not diagnosed yet or now, but I didn't sleep last night. It's been an ongoing issue. I've been to several sleep doctors. No one could help me really figure it out. But maybe you can tell us a little bit before I start sharing some amazing things. But, what's that struggle like, and even trying to advocate? Sometimes I forget I'm even a caregiver because I spend so much time just making sure those who aren't aware of Parkinson's are aware, and that takes a lot of education. And also talking about my mother's journey, I often never talk about mine or caregiving because to me it's not as important. It's really more important to remember my mother and all those like you still battling. But I'm telling you, I've been doing this only 5 years, which is seems like a long time to me. But I don't see a lot out there for sleep. You maybe you could tell us why, or why did you decide, besides that you're unfortunately facing this issue, make it number one on kind of your list of advocacy?
Well, I think, I mean, someone I've spoken before, I mean, we have both motor aspects of Parkinson's and non-motor. And for me, at least in the beginning, the non-motor aspects have been some of the more difficult aspects to manage in my life. And mine began with, it's called REM sleep behavior disorder. And again, it's considered like a prodromal Parkinson's, meaning, in early or pre-Parkinson's. And typically, when you sleep and when you dream, your muscles are paralyzed. When you have REM sleep behavior disorder, your muscles are not paralyzed. So if you're dreaming about playing basketball and making a shot, you're actually making the shot. A lot of times it's dreams about fight or flight. And if you're attacking somebody, you are physically, I mean, using your arms your your legs. And I said the first time it happened, literally attacked my wife in her sleep. She went, sort of flying off of the bed. And again, we had no, so no concept of this being, um, a symptom of, Parkinson's or a movement disorder. Went through 6 months, and she sort of said, I think maybe you have restless legs syndrome. And then it happened again where there was this major event. She goes, you have to go see somebody. What became hard about it is, and remains hard, is you go to bed never knowing what's going to happen.
Right.
Are you going to have an event, and I was 55 when it began, and the recommendation was you and your spouse should probably not sleep in the same bed. And we've been very creative in what we've done. During COVID, I was checking out, and there was a plexiglass shield, and I
Mhm.
had the idea. I bought a piece of plexiglass. I bought the foam insulation used around pipes to put around that. We have an adjustable king bed, and we put that between us. So if I have an event and I start hitting, I will hit that, and I won't hit her. I have fallen out of bed. Um, so yeah, I just think the psychological impact of the non-motor symptoms sometimes, can be as difficult, like I said, to manage as the motor symptoms. So at least in the beginning, um, that disturbance with sleep. But sleep is so important to all parts of our life. And so many patients, Parkinson's patients, struggle with either not being able to sleep and insomnia, or with the REM sleep behavior. And when you don't have quality of sleep, that impacts every part of your life. So, I mean, that's why initially, not even many primary care doctors are familiar with REM sleep behavior disorder. So I think it's just something that's important to raise awareness to, and I also think it's important to help raise community. So folks that have REM sleep behavior, can find that support from other patients and gain a better understanding.
I agree, and I wanted to also take a moment to share some invaluable sites, and I'm going to also add these to the actual show so everyone can look along. But you did some, I found where you provide WebMD, and this is your incredible wife, who I do want to try to get to soon. But little article you did about sleep, and also as a PhD myself, not in the area of science, I'm more of a criminal justice and the law, but this is beautiful. And we've had, I believe, some of these individuals on the show interviewed, and maybe you could tell us a little bit about this article. It's not easy. I recently submitted one for the first time on policing, but unfortunately, policing is such another topic we can put with sleep that no one's discussing, that it's tough to get that out there in the limelight, really, or in the media attention. Can you tell us a little bit about this article? And I'll share this with everyone.
Sure. So this article began very early on in my journey with Parkinson's. I was still considered at risk with RBD without the Parkinson's diagnosis, and those of us who participated in the article all shared the common belief that involving individuals who are at risk for Parkinson's in clinical studies and clinical research, are important, or can be important to help finding that breakthrough that may actually, be a cure or be able to interrupt that transition from an at-risk stage to Parkinson's. In that, I think whether it's at risk or whether you have Parkinson's, and with my involvement with the Parkinson's Foundation, it's so important to involve the perspectives of people living with Parkinson's and the caregivers, um, and to help them to make lives better, for those living with disease, but also in how you design and conduct study trials, and who do you involve in those study trials. So I think again, the motivation behind this was, really to encourage folks who are at risk, who are early, to participate in clinical studies and trials, because I really think it's that participation, that's going to lead us, to helping to find that advances towards that cure and a better understanding of the progression of Parkinson's.
Thank you. And you did mention something next, which is important, is the Parkinson's Foundation. Before we touch on that, curious if you could tell us a little bit about, being an attorney and having Parkinson's. Has that affected work? I'm again shocked, and I try to find I don't enjoy writing books. I'm not into it as much after a PhD and all the law school. It's like enough, but I find certain topics fascinating and not enough out there. And one of them is actually, I'm working on a book on the law in Parkinson. But what I don't see a lot is a lot of attorneys really talking about Parkinson's or even, planning wills, things. Do you, maybe you've seen different, but curious if you can comment if it's true on your side. Why don't we see more talk about, attorneys and the law and dealing with the topic of Parkinson's disease?
I mean, that's a great question. I just had that conversation, recently. And it's not just Parkinson's, and I think it's with, other chronic diseases. But one of the things I think, is critically important is that if you do have a condition like Parkinson's or another chronic disease, that financial planning, which isn't necessarily completely legal, but it is so important. And I think events that the Parkinson's Foundation does, like Moving Day, that brings resources together in the community. There's been a lot of overlap, I think, between my professional life as a lawyer and then a person with Parkinson's. One of the things in my current position, I work for a large multi-specialty group in Newport News. We have a clinical research division, so it's really interesting for me. I have reviewed literally hundreds of clinical research agreements on behalf of us as the institution, and then being a patient and being able to be on the other side, has just brought a whole new perspective, to what I do. And I think more importantly, what really motivated me to get involved with what I'm doing, this goes back a long time before I had Parkinson's. Worked for a large Fortune 500 company in Central App Appalachia, and healthcare is a huge struggle. And one of the things I always felt like felt lucky. I had an incredible health benefit, executive health benefit, and what I took from that was at the time was the healthcare that I get as someone who's senior in a company shouldn't be any better or different than the healthcare that the frontline worker has. And we developed and opened what we called the West Virginia Family Wellness Center, and that was to provide the same level of care to everybody in the company, that the most senior, people had. And again, that began out of a sense of just feeling incredibly lucky to have the care that I did. When I developed Parkinson's, I had that same reaction. I'm in Richmond, and the care team at VCU, have been wonderful, or is wonderful. And when I first spoke, it's just sort of an oxymoron to say that you feel lucky, but I felt incredibly lucky to have the providers and the access that I had. So part of the motivation for my involvement, was to get involved, and to ensure that other people have that same access. I think as a lawyer, that health equity and access, is such a critical feature that is often not discussed, and particularly for underserved communities, that you see in healthcare. So I do think, that legal and that professional background has hugely influenced my decision to become more vocal and more involved in what I'm doing with the Parkinson's community.
Well, as you know, in law school and all this education, you always feel like you learn so much, but I still learn so much every day. And through you, I'm really learning a lot today. I hope our listeners are too. I wanted to now touch a little bit because we've been had the honor to have a lot of the counts. I'd say maybe even like half has been on the show. But I was wondering if you could touch on your experience and all the work you've done. I know I'm on the walk committee here in South Florida. Our walk for Parkinson's Foundation Moving Days actually next month. This weekend I'll be at the Michael J. Fox IQ and U event. So March and April is always kind of hectic, but I always say, I know April's Parkinson's Awareness Month, but to me and to you, to everybody listening, really Parkinson's awareness needs to be 24/7 every day until there's a cure. So just curious a little bit on, your experience with the council. I know, hate naming names, but Vickers was on lately, Mark and Greg and everybody here is just inspires me, and we love every one of you if you're listening. And please again share this and support John in any way we can on sleep. Please also join a clinical study in your community. You might even be able to reach out to John or Parkinson's Foundation to see if any are going on currently. But again, maybe just a moment on the Parkinson's Foundation and the council.
Sure. So I'll have just two initial thoughts. One, it's been a hugely humbling experience to be a part of this group. And as you said, it's an amazing group of people on the council. Um, and being able to hear and learn and to share perspectives from those on the people with Parkinson's PPAC Council. Like I said, it's just been I just feel humbled to be able to be a part of it. Secondly, it's just been an incredible experience, and it's been a motivating experience. It has been such an important part of who I am now, and has really helped given me a new passion and purpose. For being more involved. And again, I mean, no one, you know, um, wants to have a family member, with Parkinson's, but I've been encouraged and motivated through PPAC to become involved in so many ways. And like I said, sometimes my professional and personal life does overlap. What was particularly when I first became involved with PPAC, I learned about what some folks may be aware of is moving day. And Richmond, Virginia is a great place to live and work. And if I looked all around us, there were moving day events in all the major cities around us, but not in Richmond. And I quickly, made the commitment, through my involvement with PPAC in the Mid-Atlantic chapter, I wanted to bring moving day to Richmond. And we had our first inaugural moving day last last year. But there were so many unmet needs in the Parkinson's community. I think particularly for newly diagnosed, being able to learn what those resources are, being able to build that community, being able to find mentors, being able to find support. Moving Day brought so much together. And after our first event, I couldn't have been more pleased with how successful it was. I received one email that really, just summed everything up for. And someone emailed me back and just said thank you, and that it was a great reminder to remember that we're not in this alone. And I couldn't have asked for anything more. I mean that one email really said everything about what Moving Day is about and what the Parkinson's Foundation is about, for caregivers and for people with Parkinson's. You're not in this alone. There's so many resources available. So for me, it's just been an incredible experience. I was asked recently about, what impact has Parkinson's had on your life? And the answer they were expecting was for me to talk about motor or non-motor symptoms. My answer wasn't what they expected. I mean, it's impacted my life because there's truly is hardly a day that goes by that I don't think about how I can be involved more, or what I can do to continue to make a difference in the Parkinson's community. And again, that's just become such a focus of my family life and my personal life.
Thank you. And I find that I love virtual because we would never have had this opportunity. So now we're family forever. But, and also even email, we did 1,000 interviews through email, which is great, but not like virtual. Virtual is like a step better. And then being live is just something. It's hard to even say on the show, but, and sometimes we'll zoom into walks like Moving Day or different events. We actually zoomed into West Virginia with George Manahan, who's family of my friend of mine. And we try to go just to show the viewers in the world what it's like to be at a live event, even if we're virtual, but to be able to hold someone's hand, hug them, laugh, smile, and unfortunately many times cry together. Like you said, you realize you're not alone. I just wish I knew you, this beautiful audience, and the whole community when my mother was here, because sadly, and it haunts me, not much does, but for 15 years, she never actually met someone or even knew someone existed that had Parkinson's. And as a caregiver, I had never met anyone either. So now we need to be on this mission. I feel everyone listening and need to share this to support John and the Parkinson's Foundation to make sure if we could just reach that one person who might be like me and my mother, but realize now they're not alone. And I think we've changed the world for the better. So thank you again for all of you do in the past, today, and also in the future. It means the world to so many.
Thank you. Like I said, it has been such a huge part of my life, and it's given me a new passion and purpose. And yeah, and if you can make a difference in one person's life, then I think that's you can't ask for more than that.
Someday I'll have to have you. I don't have another show about the lawn and the law in Parkinson's, and we're actually in a fake courtroom, and it's a lot of fun. So maybe,
A lot that we could talk about just on that. We
yeah,
touched on it in the art
yeah,
that you
yeah.
shared.
I love my wife found, she does my backgrounds that I can't figure out, but we have an actual courtroom and it's fun because we can meet in a virtual courtroom like they probably did, unfortunately, during COVID. Now I wanted to shift to the final part, and I always hate saying final because I really feel after the lights, camera, and paparazzi end and leave today, this has to continue this conversation until there's a cure at everybody's doorstep around the world. We still have work to do. But I was wondering if you could tell us three words that describe who you are.
I'd say one, I'm very driven, humble, and really value relationships.
That's a very important one. And I was wondering, this one's an interesting one, and I love. Is there one moment or most memorable moment that stands out through all of the work you've done so far with advocacy that you can share?
I think definitely it would be moving day last year. There were just so many touching moments during the event, and it has led to new relationships of people that I met. Including someone who had RBD and had never talked, about it. So it's just giving me the chance to have, more personal connection with folks. But I definitely moving day last year was the most impactful um, event in this journey.
Thank you. This show, I try to bring obviously amazing advocates who inspire me and so many, but we also like to take a moment to thank those behind the scenes that help you during tougher times or even to continue to advocate like we're doing right now. I think I know the answer, but I was wondering who helps you during times of struggle. I was a caregiver. Is there any also tips that you can give caregivers who might be listening?
I think definitely. I mean, my family and my wife in particular. And sometimes it's hard for the caregiver to really understand what the other person, as much as they're em empathetic, it is not always easy to communicate how you're feeling and what's happening at certain times. I mean, there's, again, I think that's more true with some of the non-motor symptoms. But I just think having someone that you can really rely on just to listen. They don't, just having that person to listen to. And then I just, and outside the family, I think I had mentioned to you, I mean, one of the things, I'm in healthcare, and through my own care, I think I have a new perspective, particularly on PT and physical therapy. The program, my PT at VCU has just been a huge help to me. And I want to give, a little bit of a shout out to him because you get to see that caregiver so much. He understands you as a person. He helps to tailor um, programs to meet your particular needs. He, again, it can just listen. But I think in Parkinson's, PT is so valuable. If you're not getting it, it's longitudinal care. The person's with you throughout that journey. And so I think exercise and PT are also so important in supporting, both the patient and, and the caregiver. And he has helped my wife with some of my own home exercise programs. So it engages your caregiver with you, which is also, I think, very meaningful.
Well, we send our love and support to your wife, whole family, and all the therapy and therapists and everyone who helped support you to be able to advocate today. So thank them for us too. This is a new, I like to be fresh and new here. So here's a new question. And we need a drum roll. If you could go back in time and meet someone, it could be in advocacy and Parkinson's awareness, anyone. So who would it be and what question would you ask them?
So someone in Parkinson's,
And the awareness world or who had it or even caregiver, somebody. I'm curious. I mean, I know a good answer, but curious to hear yours.
so I guess one of the folks that I would love to meet is Alan Alda. He's someone who has both RBD and Parkinson's. And I would just love to be able to meet him and ask him what advice would he give to somebody who is struggling with both RBD and Parkinson's. If you've never seen his YouTube when he first came out and told folks about the Parkinson's, it's a wonderful YouTube. And when I first listened to it, it really had a huge impact on me.
Yeah, oddly enough, I grew up in New York. And my mother loved Broadway, so my father and mother would bring me a lot. And as a child, I don't know how it happened, but Mr. Alden and his wife were across the street leaving one of the Broadway shows, and my mother pointed out that's Alan Alden. Now, if I had it, I would have ran up and thanked him, and would have loved to talk to him, and we reached out to him. So if Mr. Alden, if you're listening, John and I would like to invite you on the show and we'll have a beautiful discussion. And I will tag him on the show, so you never know. But I appreciate that's a great one. I've had Muhammad Ali, but I've only asked this question a few times, and I think that Mr. Alda is an inspiring one.
Uh,
Unfortunately, yeah, I have so many questions. It would take 12 shows. So as we wrap up for today, again, I wish we could put little things to be continued. But if you could leave the Parkinson's community today with some words of encouragement, although you've already been so encouraging, what would those be?
so I think I just say remain positive, have that can-do attitude, never give up, and just keep the faith and keep believing. I truly believe, that in the next 10 years that we're going to see huge breakthroughs. So, just do everything that you can to manage and monitor your symptoms, and again, just remain positive and don't become the victim.
Well, I appreciate your time and all the inspiring work you're doing, and I just want to thank you. And I do hope everyone listening will not only share this show, but support you, John, and the Parkinson's Council, and all you do, especially with the trials and really joining their own community and areas to get more studies out there, clinical for REM sleep or all sleep, because I know I should be in one, and I just haven't found any good answers in for the Palm Beach, Florida community, unfortunately. No offense to doctors. I've been to so many, kind of just gave up. But not healthy, whether you're a caregiver or someone with Parkinson's, not sleeping the entire night. The only good thing I will say positive is I end up advocating for Parkinson's cure literally the entire night. So if anyone wants to follow social media, you'll see that. I do have a message for you, John, everyone listening. We love you, we support you, we care a lot about you, and you're never alone. I, along with John, will advocate for you, and together I feel our voices are so much stronger. I always conclude the show with them just getting started. Well, that's not exactly true, but I do believe in that and say it because, there are tough days for all of us. Many of you know I'm unfortunately going for a fourth procedure for my back. It didn't work out, low back, and it's changed the world forever. I used to be a basketball player athlete, can't do it anymore. But even when I came out of anesthesia, I was advocating for a Parkinson's cure on the table of the surgery. So that's the most important thing to me. And, like I said, we won't stop till the cure is at everybody's doorsteps around the world. So thank you again, John, and really just so appreciative and thankful for your time today.
No, thank you. I can't tell you how much I appreciate you letting me be on the show and share my story. So thank you.
Thanks. And again, everyone, please go to, you can actually follow John on LinkedIn. Also, you can reach him through the Parkinson's Foundation, but more importantly, and most let's also support him on moving day, which you can donate to, and I'll provide a lot of the links so you can join in and reach him anytime. But again, thanks everyone. This has been another episode of Q&A with Sharon's son George. Please stay tuned. So much more to come. And of course, Parkinson's Awareness Month is coming. We'll be at Michael J. Fox IQ event. Likely, as long as the back's okay, I'll be at the Unity Walk. So maybe, John, we can meet someday. Everyone's welcome. It's in New York City, which is, I went last year. It's such a life-changing event being in, my hometown, but Central Park, even though it was freezing, with so many beautiful people. Mr. Fox showed up, which was a surprise guest. That was the second time I met him, which was amazing. And then we have our moving day walk, so much to come, and John. So got a lot of things to do, everyone, but together again, I think we'll accomplish them. And like John said, I do feel through these events and all your advocacy and everyone listening, we're going to be closer to a cure. So thanks again, everyone. Thank you, John. And we send our love. Please stay tuned. There's a lot more to come. Thanks, everyone.
Just seeing you in
Thank
person. Nice to meet you.
I'd love it. Thank you.
Bye.